Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Financial Issues this Monday morning, first Monday of March. I'm Seth Udinsky here with you this morning. Sam Case as well in the Studio A team. Grateful to be here with you, folks. Hey, we got a great week of financial issues planned for you. Shana will be back live tomorrow. We're looking forward to that very much. But right now, great show planned, and I hope you are as excited as we are to dive into financial issues today. We're live this morning, so please join us. Best way to do so is to call in. 610-363-1110 is the number to call in. Again, 610-363-1110. Folks, I do want to remind you, please do pray for the believers, especially in the Carolinas right now, as there are sadly many wildfires raging down there. I do know we have several listeners. James from one of them is on the chat with us this morning. I've got family down in that region as well. Haven't heard any troubling news so far from them, which is great. But please do pray for those believers down there, especially, and for the FISM family, as I do know we have some members in those states also. So, James, if you're watching on the chat today, brother, please do let us know how you're doing and how we can pray for you. Sam, it's good to be here, buddy. Thanks for joining today. I'm excited for the show.
Yeah, happy Monday. If Mondays are ever happy,
absolutely.
I guess this is close enough, right?
We try to make financial issues as happy an experience as you can on a Monday morning, especially for those of you, maybe you're in a western part of the country and you're just getting up this morning or you're commuting to work. Hopefully it can be a delight for you. So excited to have you. Sam, thanks for joining today. It's going to be fun. Folks, on today's show, public schools, one of the largest mission fields in our nation. You know, millions of children attend public schools and they need the gospel of Jesus Christ desperately. And so we are so excited to partner with our friends at Crossroads Kids Club. You'll see on your screen actually right now, if you're watching the feed, there's a little, I'm going to try to frame it up as best I can here. On the left-hand side, let's see if I can get that. There's that little QR code there.
Right
yeah, there it is, right there. There's a QR code there that'll take you directly to reachourschools.com, where you can partake in our March Easter campaign that we are doing with Crossroads Kids Club, trying to fund the light with them. This campaign is called the Out of Darkness campaign. I'll say a little bit more about that later on, but check them out right now. You can put up your smartphone to that QR code and it'll take you right to that website. We'll talk more about that later in the show. Your calls and questions as well, folks. 610-363-1110. One more time is the phone number. Also, cryptocurrency, interestingly enough, continues to be a prominent talking point in the financial news cycle. What do we make of the recent fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and rise of Bitcoin, as well as other cryptocurrencies in general? We'll try to make some sense of that today. Later on, we'll hear some words from Shana on that. Also, the DOGE Dividend, looking more and more like a possibility. Interesting stuff here. We'll explore what this could mean for you. It is great to be here with you all. But first and foremost, I think the big news over the weekend, at least one of them, Sam, we saw on Friday a very interesting meeting of foreign leaders, two former actors turned politicians, as it were, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, the war in Ukraine has entered its fourth year, folks. Almost 3 of those years dragged on with seemingly no end in sight under the leadership of the Biden administration in the United States. Now, Donald Trump has since come in, and his administration is looking to get a deal done to finish this thing once and for all, and also get something out of it for America. I would not be opposed to that. I'm sure you feel the same way. So he and Volodymyr Zelensky met on Friday in a rather contentious kerfluffle. It was pretty good television. And apparently, Sam, it ended in Trump kicking the Ukrainian president out of the White House. What can you tell us about this, Sam? Any updates from this?
I wouldn't even call it a meeting, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of more of a WWE-style SmackDown.
It
was something to behold, right?
It was fun stuff, for sure. Yeah. Fun stuff, yeah.
So what happened here is it was a 10-minute long fight. So Zelensky comes in. They're trying to sort out this mineral deal that would see the United States having some of the resources in Ukraine to act as sort of a tripwire to prevent future Russian incursions. So if Russia invades, they'll also be dealing with the U.S. as well. But as you mentioned, Seth, things didn't exactly work out that way. No deal was made on Friday because Zelensky was coming in with a little bit of a bad mood, and that caused Trump to have a bad mood as well. Zelensky was complaining about past U.S. relationship with Ukraine and was also frustrated with how the U.S. has been dealing with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And as you'll see in this clip, Donald Trump was having none of it, to say the least.
You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today,
meeting, you said thank you.
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
So Zelensky Vance was joining in on the fun there too.
Yeah.
Quite the show. Trump did say it made for good television, which it certainly did, Seth.
It sure did, Sam. And, I do think, folks, this is a good display for the United States, and I think for the Trump administration as well. I'm not a fan of people unnecessarily bullying other people, but I don't think that's what this was. I really do think that in the last several years, the United States has in some ways been enslaved or indebted to Ukraine. And of course, we want world peace. We want there to be peace. We don't want there to be any more fighting between Russia and Putin. And I think Trump understands that, absolutely. But I think what he's trying to do here is he is doing what has not been done before, which is actually trying to get a deal done with this thing rather than fanning the flames of a continuous, never-ending conflict. I really think that's what this was. And I think this was a good sign for sure. Now, Sam, I did see over the weekend, it appears that there is still a pathway for this mineral deal to get done. And it also seems as though Europe might be stepping in now. It seems like for the first time in a real big way. It kind of seems like up until this point, the United States had been leading the charge with sending money to Ukraine. Maybe not now. Do you have any updates for us there?
Yeah, so after this big blowout that you saw between Trump and Zelensky, you see that Zelensky is now going to the Europeans, particularly British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who said, I believe it was yesterday, that the Europeans need to step up to the plate more. He says that this is basically our war, not the United States, because it's taking place on our continent. He said, of course, the U.S. has a role to play, but we here as Europeans need to be the ones really stepping up to the plate with doling out some cash. He also announced a $2.84 billion loan for military assets for Ukraine when making that announcement.
Yeah. So definitely good stuff there. Folks, to bring this kind of back to really the core of our ministry is that we want people to know and love Jesus Christ. And of course, we do that through teaching people how to be biblically responsible. I think when we're talking about foreign wars that in the final analysis don't have a lot to do with us, a couple good things to pray for would be to pray for peace and also to pray for protection for the believers impacted, because there are many believers in Ukraine who have been hit hard by this. And I would argue that there are also believers in Russia who've been hit hard by this in one way or the other, whether it's from their own government or from enemy powers. So it's a good reminder to pray for peace with this also. I do think that there is a clear pathway to peace that we have not seen in the first 3 years of this conflict. So be interesting to see how this plays out, Sam. We'll be keeping an eye on this for sure, folks. So we'll probably have some more updates for you later on in the week with this. But no, it's good stuff. Well, let's move now here, folks, to the markets. So interesting day for the markets to cap a very interesting week for sure. So on Friday, the indices opened the day moderately positive. By mid-morning, they were in positive territory thanks in part to some met expectations from Friday's inflation data. So the markets hadn't really seen much of some calm, although Sam and I posed that they probably should have been calmed by NVIDIA's great earnings report, but they were distracted by just the next big thing that was coming. Kind of seemed like that might have been the case on Friday. By early afternoon, they turned negative once again. Now, CNBC was claiming that it was due to Trump's meeting with Zelensky to discuss the mineral deal and the arguing match that ensued. And we just, of course, discussed that. By late afternoon, though, the indices were able to kind of regain themselves a little bit, and they reversed course yet again and were back in the green. So by Friday's closing bell, the Dow Jones was up 1.39%. So it was a pretty positive finish. The S&P 500 was up almost 1.6. The NASDAQ just over 1.6. It was a very interesting week in the markets, folks. So the week ending 228, the Dow was the lone winner, gained about a percentage point. The NASDAQ was the big loser, lost almost 4%, and the S&P 500 fell about 1%. Pretty similarly reflective for the month of February as a whole. It was a chaotic month for the markets. The Dow Jones ended up negative about 1.6%. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 was negative about 1.4%, and the NASDAQ composite was down about 4 percentage points there. So it'll be interesting to see how all this stuff plays out here as we continue on now, coming to the end of quarter one of 2025. Speaking of the quarters, folks, earnings season is pretty much at its end here. There's really not much left to report. I'll just mention quickly here, not much today. Tomorrow we do get Target, which will always be fascinating to see Target's journey with being woke and now apparently not woke. CrowdStrike as well and others. Not a whole lot to report though. Same with Wednesday. Thursday we do get Costco, so we'll be keeping an eye on that for sure, as well as Broadcom and some others also. But earnings season certainly winding down here. Now we're coming to kind of that halfway point throughout the year. If you remember, we talked about this previously, where half the year is spent in earnings season and half the year is not. We're coming to the point where we're not in earnings season anymore. We'll pick back up in about a month and a half or so. But that's what we're looking like this week, folks. So lots to get to on financial issues here. When we come back, folks, I'm very excited to have my friend Matt Armstrong on with me to talk more about this Out of Darkness campaign that we're doing with Crossroads Kids Club. We're very excited for this. So I do hope you'll stick with us. And of course, we'll talk about cryptocurrency later on in the program as well. Lots to discuss with that. More financial issues coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
Colossians 1:13 tells us, "For he has rescued us from the kingdom of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of his dear Son." Right now, children across the country are waiting for that rescue. Will you help us reach 100 kids? By sponsoring a child and by writing them a personal letter of encouragement, you can shine Christ's love in a place where it's needed most. Visit reachOurSchools.com today and change a child's future forever.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Folks, the pre-markets are starting out positive here for the month of March. Tesla is on the rise. Bitcoin is on the rise, too. Bitcoin, speaking of which, we'll talk more about that in our cryptocurrency section a little later on in the program. And speaking of Tesla, actually, we'll have some things to say about the upcoming possible DOGE dividend, so you're not going to want to miss that here. But right now, folks, I am very excited to have my friend Matt Armstrong join me on the program here. So, folks, we are beginning this week a 2-week-long campaign with Crossroads Kids Club, our dear friends who are doing some great work in bringing the gospel to public schools across the country and throughout the world. This campaign is called Out of Darkness. We're trying to bring children out of darkness into the light of Jesus Christ by giving them the gospel, by showing them the only way unto salvation. Colossians 1:13 through 14 says, He's delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of His love, in whom we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of sins. So now through March 14th, we're doing this campaign. It is is a double impact campaign. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as well as Matt will coming up here in just a moment. But as for right now, I want to encourage you folks, we have a QR code up on our screen. If you're watching the program, if you're listening, I'm sorry, you can't give this way. You'll have to go to reachourschools.com. But if you're watching the program on a TV outlet or on social media or the website, you can see there's a QR code in the bottom left corner of the screen. If you put your phone up to that will take you right to reachourschools.com, where you can learn more about how you can participate in this great campaign we're doing. Matt, welcome back to the program, brother. It's great to have you on with me. Thanks for joining us.
Seth, it's always good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Likewise. And once again, folks, Matt Armstrong is the CEO of Crossroads Kids Club. We're grateful for the work that they do. Matt, just to start here, tell us about the heart of this campaign that we're launching today, why it's so urgent that we reach children in public schools with the gospel right now. What are we doing here?
Well, the darkness, Seth, is just so evident all around us. Scripture says to watch out for our great enemy, the devil, because he prowls around like a lion seeking who he can devour. And the sad thing is that he is seeking to devour our children.
Yeah.
Your listeners may not know, but this year, approximately 600,000 10-year-olds will be exposed to pornography. Speaking of 10-year-olds, there's a 10-year-old boy who last month he's a part of a Crossroads Kids Club in Ohio, shot and killed in the back seat of his mother's car as they were pulling out of the driveway. 32% of kids have symptoms of clinical anxiety. Our enemy is coming after kids with everything he can. And so it's really just important for us to push back that darkness and take a stand.
Absolutely, brother. Man, that's just horrifying stuff to hear. At the same time, so grateful that Crossroads is on the front lines. So tell us this, Matt, the specifics of this campaign. What are our goals, and how will this impact the work that Crossroads is doing to reach these school-age children? I mean, as you said, it's so important. The enemy's coming after them. It makes sense. Children are young. They're pliable. Crossroads is trying to reach them at that such vital, important time also. So what are the specifics of this campaign here?
Yeah, the specifics of this campaign is that we are seeking 100 people who will sponsor a child to participate in Crossroads for an entire year. And that cost is $32 a month or $384 for the year. And what that does is that allows a child who has never heard about Jesus to hear about him right inside their school. What Crossroads does is we go into the public schools and we create a safe space for the kids to open up, to form connections with healthy, caring Christian leaders, and to open up God's word. And then what happens is they get connected to Jesus as well. I want to just share this one thing. We've been working together, Seth, for some months now, I think since about October.
Yeah.
And to date, the funds that have come in through your listeners here on financial issues have allowed us to open up several brand new clubs.
Awesome.
I was just at a brand new club that opened up this year down in Florida last week on Thursday. And speaking with 6 kids, there are 6 kids there who have already come to know Jesus, and we got to interview several of them. It was just such a beautiful thing hearing them talk about their faith in Jesus that they found right in their school. So thank you. I want to say thank you to the listeners for what you have done so far, but there's so much more to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, and folks, let me just echo Matt's words there also. Your generosity is bringing children to Christ. Now, it's God doing all the work, of course, Matt, but what a joy to know that he's using us. He's using the faithfulness of the Financial Issues family. Man, that is so cool. So Matt, tell us something else here. I'm excited about this matching gift opportunity that we have. So what's the kind of this double gift that we have as part of this campaign? I know we have a very generous anonymous donor who's willing to match dollar for dollar. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you about that. But, I forgot one other thing about the specifics of this campaign. As we know, Easter is coming. We're just about to start in the season of Lent this week. And one thing we'd like to do is not just to receive funds, which will, of course, drive this forward and open new clubs, but we realize that not everybody can go and not everybody can give. So there is an opportunity right on that same website, reachourschools.com, where you can select an option to to send a personal handwritten Easter card to a child who participates in Crossroads Kids Club. So this is an opportunity to very directly and very personally share a message of hope with a public school child. So I just didn't want to forget that point. I think it's really important. But yes, as you said, there is a match. It's pretty simple. It's just dollar for dollar. From all new partners who would support this campaign. There is a maximum of $2,500 per partner. So that's where it would cap out, and $35,000 in total.
Yeah. So I'm sure there is a listener out there who even today might be able to give a $2,500 gift. And of course, as you heard Matt say, folks, until the end of next week, so for the next 2 weeks, this match is active. So every dollar that you give to Crossroads Kids Club will be given up to, as you said, Matt, $35,000, which is almost right at our goal of $38,000. So yes, man, just so exciting there. That is awesome. Matt, you had done this also earlier, but can you share just another one? You know, Crossroads is stepping into the challenges that you mentioned with the light of Christ. You mentioned the young boy who, or the young children who are oftentimes exposed to pornography at the age of 10. It's just terrifying to think of that. Can you share a specific story or two of a child whose life has been transformed by Crossroads?
Oh, absolutely. Well, since we're talking about that, I'll tell you about a young boy named Dali. He's actually 16 now. But when he was 8, his parents split up, and his siblings went to live with his dad, and he was living with his mom, and just felt confused and isolated, as many kids do. Started filling the time by looking at things on the internet, and came across pornography at 8 years old. Became addicted, and it made him feel even more lonely and isolated, confused. And thankfully, his cousins invited him to come to Crossroads Kids Club. And there he was seen and known and loved. He did hear God's word. He decided to follow Christ. He loves Jesus with all his heart. He's been set free, again, 16 years old, and now he is leading a small group of kids at Crossroads Kids Club, just with a desire to help kids that are going through things like he did, to overcome those things through Christ.
That is awesome, man. Yeah, praise God for that one. You know, Matt, I don't often think about public schools as a mission field. Oftentimes, I think in our kind of, American evangelical mindset, we tend to think of the mission field as somewhere far away, not realizing the fact that God has sovereignly put us in specific places, and everywhere around us in some sense can be our mission field, whether it's our families or, as we've been talking about, public schools. Why should we see the public school not only as a mission field, but as really an urgent and worthy cause for Christians to make an impact in?
Yeah, great question. I think, number one, kids are the most unreached people group, not only here in America, but around the world. But here in the U.S., 80% of kids are not connected to a church or attending a church regularly, right? It's among all the different age groups, it's really the least church group. And when I think of missions, I think of the Great Commission, and Jesus said, therefore, go. Now the kids, they can't drive. They're not going to be able to even have the option to come into your church. But the laws have made the schools open to us to come in and share Christ after school. So I just think it's an incredible missional opportunity for God's people to do what Jesus said, to go and to make disciples. In fact, last week at the club I mentioned in Florida, there's a family, a homeschool family that serves together. The youngest boy, he's 9 years old. And he talked about how they've been studying missionaries in their homeschool, but how they realize that they are local missionaries and part of fulfilling the Great Commission right in their neighborhood through this Crossroads Club.
Matt, that is awesome. And let's just talk about this one more time, because you had mentioned this aspect of this campaign. I'm so excited for this, is being able to write a personal letter to one of these kids. I'm sure there are going to be some listeners in our audience who maybe will not be able to give financially, but they can still support this way. Could you just encourage them one more time? How would they go about doing this, sending that letter to a Crossroads Kids Club kid?
Yes. Well, you go to the website, reachourschools.com, and scroll down a little bit, and there's a button that says send a card. And when you click that, it'll ask for your name, your email, and your phone number. And then what will happen is that you will get an email with some tips and pointers about how to send a card. You can make a homemade card. You could purchase a card in the store. And then within 2 days, we will text you. That's why we need the phone number, with the name and the grade of a child. That will be their first name and their grade. And then we will ask you to mail those cards. This will be in the email instructions to our Crossroads mailing address. We will, of course, read all the cards just to make sure that the messages are appropriate and safe to go to the kids. And then we will deliver them to the child just before Easter.
Matt, that is awesome. I need to confess something to you, brother. Before I came in contact with Crossroads Kids Club, I had felt tempted to kind of give up public schools as just a lost cause. But hearing about Crossroads Kids Club has given me hope again that the gospel can reach these kids. You guys are doing that work, brother, and I'm so grateful for you personally. I'm not just saying this as one of the hosts of Financial Issues, but as someone who deeply cares about children and who wants to see children come to Christ. I want to thank you for the work that you guys are doing and tell you what an honor it is for us to be a part of it, Matt. So, man, I appreciate you so much, brother.
I feel the same about you all and the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
And it's been a beautiful partnership. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, brother. Folks, that's Matt Armstrong, the CEO of Crossroads Kids Club. We'll talk more about this campaign over the next several weeks, but I would encourage you right now, again, we're looking for 100 listeners to give $384. If we get 100 listeners and each of them gives $384, that will meet our goal for this campaign. And once again, I can't tell you how important it is to give now, because during this time, these next 2 weeks, every dollar that you give will be matched up to that $35,000 amount. Matt, appreciate you so much, brother. God bless the work that you guys are doing, and it's an honor to partner together. I'm sure we'll be talking more later on as this campaign continues. Folks, we'll be right back after this break. If you have to leave us, we hope you have a great day. Coming up next, we'll talk about cryptocurrency, DOGE, all the good stuff. We'll be back right after this with more Financial Issues. Don't go anywhere.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
I just love the first book of Exodus. The king says, the Jews are too many. Get rid of them. I command you to kill the firstborn. But the midwives to the Hebrews heard the order, and what did they do? They defied it. And God dealt favorably with the midwives and gave them families. He blessed them for loving life. He blessed them for saving babies. We have re-entered the death cult in this country. You think about how much we elevate death, whether it be the chopping off of parts and we call it transgender care, whether it be shouting our abortion, and you see it so beautifully in John 10:10. It is the divide of the entire scriptures. Now, most people would say John 3:16, but think about it. The enemy has come to lie, steal, cheat, and destroy. I have come to give life and life more abundantly. That's the whole ball game, everybody. It is everything. And we have to have the joy of Jesus Christ to enjoy life and to protect it. It's a gift from above. And Preborn is leading the charge.
Colossians 1:13 tells us, "For He has rescued us from the kingdom of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of His dear Son." Right now, children across the country are waiting for that rescue. They're facing challenges like broken homes, peer pressure, and insecurity. But through Crossroads Kids Club, these children are finding something greater: hope, love, and a future in Christ.
If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now.
I learned that God loves me just the way that I am.
Your support can transform young lives, planting seeds of faith that will echo into eternity. Will you help us reach 100 kids? By sponsoring a child and by writing them a personal letter of encouragement, you can shine Christ's love in a place where it's needed most. Visit reachOurschools.com today and change a child's future forever. That's reachOurschools.com.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, folks. Thanks for joining us today. Man, I really do appreciate Matt Armstrong and their team at Crossroads. If you missed that interview, you can go back and listen to it, this campaign that we're doing. But again, if you're watching on any TV outlet, whether it's on the website, on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, or if you're watching on any of the TV outlets that we're on, you will see a QR code on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm trying to frame it up here with my hands to make it look really cool. QR code is right there. If you hold your phone up to that, it'll take you right to reachOurSchools.com.
It's pretty big. If people are missing it, I might be a little concerned. They might want to have their eyes checked.
That's right. So check out that QR code, reachOurSchools.com, and be a part of this great campaign, this great work that Crossroads Kids Club is doing. I'm so grateful for them. As you all know, they're our newest sponsor, and man, it's been a wonderful partnership so far. So really, really cool stuff. Sam, as kind of a follow-up to that interview that we did, I did a headline that you had mentioned about the continual mental health problems that we're seeing among kids. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I stumbled across this as I was thinking about all the things going on with Crossroads and this campaign. This is just a devastating survey. It's from Politico. It found 88% of medical and mental health professionals say the mental health well-being of patients under 18 is significantly worse since the pandemic. 53%, in fact, say it's significantly worse. And those results were reported across all 50 states, so it's not located in any one area. The main blame that they're casting this on is social media and social isolation, which, of course, is a direct result of COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really sad stuff there for sure, and it's all the more reason, folks, why we want to promote organizations like Crossroads. In my opinion, Sam, there's no better answer for mental well-being issues than the gospel. And I don't want to try to trivialize certain issues that might need medical attention as well. But what I'm talking about here is when you're talking about mental health problems like feeling anxious or feeling downtrodden, different things like that, ultimately, I do believe that it's within the bounds of orthodoxy to say the gospel of Jesus Christ provides the answer. I mean, it really does. We read in Ephesians 6, Paul talks about the helmet of salvation. That helmet, part of the armor of God, is what all believers have to guard your minds. That's guarding your mind and the assurance of the salvation that you have. And we want to give that assurance to these kids, folks. Really simple. So, the need is great, and Crossroads is doing some great work in it. So it's great stuff to know that they're in that. All right, let's move to the markets here now, folks. So everything is in positive territory to start the week, start the month, start the day. The Dow Jones is up a third, the S&P 500 also up a third, and the NASDAQ creeping up towards a fifth of a percentage point in positive territory. Right now, oil is right around $70 a barrel, and the U.S. 10-year Treasury yields also creeping up a little bit, right around 4.25 percentage points. So, of course, the markets are keeping an eye as well with everything that's going on with the Ukraine kerfluffle, also keeping an eye on the tariff talks. Remember, those tariffs supposed to take effect tomorrow. Unless something happens in the 11th hour today, we can expect those tariffs on Mexico and Canada to take place tomorrow. All right, Sam, let's switch gears here now and talk about a very controversial topic, one that we've touched on our ministry before, but one that's worth reviewing again, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I want to start this here with a teachable moment clip from Shana Burt, a conversation that she and I had recently on Bitcoin and crypto, also with, I believe this was with a partner question as well. So you'll hear Shana's words on this. Great insight. Here's Shana Burt on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Wanda, a couple questions for you. Maybe we can take these piece by piece, Shana. She says, I looked at Dan's video comments on cryptocurrency. I still have a few questions. Here's my first one. Since the original Bitcoin, not the offshoots, is not owned by any person or company, how do you measure if it's BRI?
So the way that we measure a company for BRI, for biblically responsible, is the company. When you buy shares of stock, you're becoming an owner of a company. Now, you don't get to make the day-to-day decisions about what happens with the company's resources, about whether they pay for their employees to travel across state lines and get an abortion, whether they donate money to a gay pride parade or festival, whether they support legislation that is anti-family and tries to push marriage as something that it's not. You don't get to make those day-to-day decisions. You're delegating that authority to the board of directors and the CEO, but you're expecting them to generate a return for you, but you don't want them to generate a return that involves you having to compromise on your Christian convictions, on your moral convictions.
crypto is considered to be neutral because it's more like a commodity than there's no decisions to be made there. So, Bitcoin is not going to force you, buying Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is not going to force you to do anything with that asset that is against your moral conviction. So that's why it's neutral when it comes to whether or not it's biblically responsible.
Awesome. Follow-up question here. Fidelity offers a Bitcoin ETF. Wanda's asking, would you recommend buying any shares as part of a rollover IRA portfolio?
Wanda, that's something that we've been wrestling with. It's hard not to start taking crypto seriously as an asset class, but at the end of the day, I keep coming back to, what are you actually getting?
Yeah.
You can't, we're seeing on the screen, the Bitcoin. I mean, who's ever held a Bitcoin?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You can't take it down to the store and, get goods or services for it. It's something that's really, really intangible. So there's even risk to that. What if, one of the conspiracy theories is that we're going to suffer from an EMP, either maliciously or something in the heavens going to knock out everything. Well, what happens if we have that? How's anybody going to access their digital assets with no electricity and no computers? So, a lot of things to think about. I mean, if you do a lot of research on it and it's something that you just don't want to miss out on, I mean, you could maybe add it in there as 1 or 2%. It's not officially a part of our strategy. But it's something that's very interesting. It's something to keep an eye on.
Good stuff, Shana. Last question from Wanda. Speaking of interesting, and we touched on this a little bit last week in our conversation of cryptocurrency. How do you see it moving from its original intent of peer-to-peer transactions to a potential one-world currency?
Well, it's going to have to be centralized. So, my theory, I'm not passing this off as scripture or prophecy or anything like that, but, and our founder, Dan Celia, used to say that having a one world currency is a kind of a prerequisite for having a one world government, which the Bible does say that we're going to have. So, I don't know that it's necessarily going to be Bitcoin, because it's going to have to be something that is that governments have control over and that is centralized. I mean, China does a version of this in their country right now. They have a social credit score, and they can turn off or limit your ability to buy and sell, and based on whatever information that they have. So, I don't really think that it's Bitcoin that's going to be the one world currency, but who knows? Not a prophecy that I've been given any special insight into.
So a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there, folks, of sure. Sam, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, just to give us an update on where Bitcoin is in particular. So it tanked over the weekend and then skyrocketed amid the announcement of Trump's crypto reserve. What can you tell us about this?
And this kind of has been the story of crypto, right? Yeah. It's become kind of a political thermometer more than anything else. So you're right. As of Friday, Bitcoin was hovering around 80,000, and that's come as crypto, and particularly Bitcoin, has experienced its worst monthly performance in over 2 years. Particularly the concern there was over Trump's tariffs. And as I said, this has been kind of a political back and forth. So the concern right now in the political sphere has been tariffs, but right after Donald Trump was elected, crypto soared 44% from election day. So it's really not being rooted in anything other than political fears or perhaps aspirations. As of this morning, it soared back to 93,000 as Trump announced that U.S. strategic crypto reserve. So perhaps that's going to give it a little bit more stability moving forward. But as you guys were saying, as of right now, it's not really being rooted in anything in particular. And that's leading to these volatile jumps and declines that we're seeing with the cryptocurrency in general.
Yeah, Sam, you're exactly right. I appreciate you bringing that up. The name of the game here, it seems like it is just so volatile. I mean, even right now, as we were talking, you said it was up around 93,000. Now it's down almost 4% as of this morning. So as of this morning, it's going bananas. It's going back and forth. And folks, that's really kind of, I think, the lesson that we want you to see here. Our position in our ministry historically has been a cautious one towards investing in these types of cryptocurrencies. And there's so much uncertainty when it comes to this. There really is. There's non-sustainability. There's different things like that. It's not so much a question of BRI or not BRI as it is a question, you just heard Shana speak to this, it's a question of wisdom. It really is a question of wisdom. And if we could do anything for you folks, it would be to help you not to have a brain aneurysm or a headache, so to speak, every time you look at your investments. If you were invested heavily in Bitcoin, it probably wouldn't be very fun for you to see it go up and down like that. And of course, we're not looking to have an easy time investing, but we want you to invest in investments that are wise. I'm not saying that they're always going to perform well.
Investing should be a tad boring, right, Seth?
Absolutely. A tad boring in a good way. That's right. If you're long term, you can't be going on a roller coaster ride, and that's what Bitcoin is. We really feel like cryptocurrency in general, it just might not be the wisest place to put your money. And of course, it's something we have to keep an eye on because it's part of the world we live in now, much like AI is. Bitcoin is the same way, to be sure. But we'll keep an eye on this for sure, folks. We really believe your best bet, to use a term that we don't promote, by the way, gambling, but your best bet in investing, simply put, is to do a long-term, well-diversified, good, solid strategy. That's what we promote here at the ministry. So interesting conversation on Bitcoin for sure. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more as it comes up here. If you got questions about it, folks, you can always put them up on the chat or call in. We got more financial issues coming up right after this break. Don't go anywhere.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
Hearing Jesus say, "Well done," how to secure your rewards in heaven. Don't you want to be sure that when you get there, that you're going to have the best life forever? And that best life forever is being able to access the plethora of wonderful, escalating rewards that are elucidated throughout the book of Revelation to those who overcome. Well, that's what the book's about, friend.
Order your copy of Hearing Jesus Say Well Done today on Amazon and start living for what truly matters.
Colossians 1:13 tells us, "For he has rescued us from the kingdom of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of his dear Son." Right now, children across the country are waiting for that rescue. They're facing challenges like broken homes, peer pressure, and insecurity. But through Crossroads Kids Club, these children are finding something greater: hope, love, and a future in Christ.
If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now.
I learned that God loves me just the way that I am.
Your support can transform young lives, planting seeds of faith that will echo into eternity. Will you help us reach 100 kids? By sponsoring a child and by writing them a personal letter of encouragement, you can shine Christ's love in a place where it's needed most. Visit reachOurschools.com today and change a child's future forever. That's reachOurschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Hey folks, I did want to make a quick clarification. Brian from Virginia had a great question there, wondering about our match with Crossroads Kids Clubs, if that is just for new donors or if it's for anyone who has donated before. If you give to the Crossroads campaign during these next 2 months, next 2 weeks up until March 14th at all, then that will be counted among that dollar for dollar match up to $35,000. So yeah, Brian, that is a great question there, and I really appreciate you asking. Once again, folks, you can go to reachOurschools.com. You can also hold up your phone to that QR code if you're watching a show, if you're watching on a TV format rather than listening on the radio. If you're watching on a TV format, use that QR code there, and that'll take you right to reachOurschools.com. reachOurschools.com. All right, folks, let's get to the Ag Report here. Craig Haugard giving us what we need to know from a farming and ranching perspective as bird flu continues to be a question, and egg prices as well. We'll hear what Craig has to say right now. Here's today's Ag Report.
This is Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for March 3rd. Well, corn stumbled Friday as funds were the sellers of roughly 50,000 contracts during the session. The motivated selling, coupled with a lack of buyers, made for a pretty ugly day. In South America, Argentina is showing some improvement in the corn crop production due to the recent rains, while in Brazil, the planting of the second crop was accelerated in the past 2 weeks, planting progress now a couple percent above average. At the close, May corn was 11.5 cents lower at $4.69.5. The soybean complex was led lower by fund selling, with soybean oil being hit especially hard. The soybean oil story seems to be morphing from eternal hope for a biofuel revival in the U.S. and Brazil to malaise and cynicism. In Brazil, the harvest is over 50% complete, and the weight of a record South American crop is becoming a real burden to the price outlook. The closing bell, May beans were 11.5 cents lower at $10.25 3/4. Wheat was hit with fund selling once the talks between President Trump and Zelensky fell apart. Now, typically, that would seem to be bullish for wheat, with Ukraine's crop being a major factor in world production. But corn's weakness kept wheat on the defensive. In other export news, Russian values remained unchanged. Closing bell, Minneapolis May wheat was 7 cents lower at $5.97 3/4. Kansas City declined by 12.25 cents, closing at $5.73 a bushel. And we had Chicago down 6 3/4 cents at $5.55 3/4. Cotton futures set a new life of contract low on Friday. May futures ended the day 135 points lower at 65.25. Livestock futures were also in full retreat. April live cattle were $3.47.5 lower, $192.65 per hundredweight. April feeder cattle dropped by $2.55 as they closed out the day at $273 per hundred. And we had April lean hog futures 70 cents lower, closing at $83.67.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures saw their short winning streak come to an end. At the close, Mart futures were 31 points lower at $18.69. This has been Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Always appreciate what Craig does for us, folks. Okay, so an interesting headline here, Sam. We get to it at last. The DOGE Dividend update. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on this. I've already seen some on the chat there. What can you tell us about the latest news here, Sam, with this DOGE Dividend? What have we got?
I'm sure some people are going to be excited at least because it does appear that there's a good possibility this thing could actually happen. James Fishback, he's the hedge fund manager who came up with the idea a couple weeks ago. He says he's been meeting with lawmakers to make it become a law. He says to the New York Post that a bill could be coming in the next few days. To recap what this whole thing is, under his plan, net taxpayer households, they will receive 20% of all of DOGE's savings. So that would equal roughly $5,000 per household if Elon Musk actually reaches his goal of cutting $2 trillion, which is an open question right now. He says it could be just as much as about $500 billion, but we'll have to wait and see how much they actually cut. Regardless, it's still going to be a pretty nice paycheck, regardless of what that number actually is. Now, this has led to some questions, right? So if you're giving people all this money, is that going to have an inflationary effect, such as what happened when Joe Biden gave out those stimulus checks during COVID-19? Fishback says that probably isn't going to happen, saying that most people are going to end up using this to put in their savings or maybe to pay down debt. Meanwhile, National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett, he's for the White House, he points out that the money was going to be spent by the government anyway, so American people spending the money won't have an impact on inflation either. In reality, if Americans spend all the money, it's going to be a wash. It's going to be a zero impact on inflation, considering that the government was going to spend that money in the first place. Here he is talking about that.
On these potential checks that you might send out from DOGE, is there a concern as you're thinking through this that they could be inflationary?
Oh, absolutely not, because imagine if we don't spend government money and we give it back to people, then if they spend it all, then you're even. But they're probably going to save a lot of it, in which case you're reducing inflation. And also, when the government spends a lot, that's what creates inflation. We learned that from Joe Biden. And so if we reduce government spending, then that's reduces inflation. And if you give people money, then they're going to save a bunch of it. And when they save it, then that also reduces demand and reduces inflation.
So there you have it, Seth. Of course, this doesn't answer the question as to whether this is a good idea, if this is the best use of the DOGE cuts, but still, it is at least comforting to know this probably isn't going to have an effect on inflation after all.
Absolutely. Really interesting points that Council Director Hassett put there. Sam, a little side note here, by the way. Sam had the chance to speak to Council Director Hassett several years ago at CPAC, I think it was, Sam, right? You were able to get to talk to him?
Yeah, and
tell us a little bit about that.
He is as smiley and chipper in person as he appears on camera in that clip right there. He's a very pleasant person.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know him personally, obviously. Not like you had the chance to actually talk to him, but he seems to be repeating a lot of what we've said on financial issues before, that the root cause of inflation and economic problems in our day and age here seems to be government spending. And so I was pretty encouraged to hear this, honestly, Sam. I know not everyone in the chat was. William had a interesting comment saying earlier, William from Mississippi, saying, in my opinion, a DOGE dividend will not happen, nor should not happen. Eliminate waste and cut taxes. William, I'm with you there. Absolutely. I would love the waste, the taxes, all that stuff to be taken care of first. That seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. But if Council Director Hassett is right that this is how it works, that's a pretty good argument for the DOGE payout. And again, as we said before, Sam, I'll never say no to 5,000 beans in my pocket. That's not a bad thing, especially if it's not harmful. And that's the big question.
That's a lot of beans to put in your pocket.
That's exactly right.
Are you going to be able to hold all of them?
Big pockets there is what we need to do, yeah. So I would love folks to see, rather than just accepting money from the government, which is what this felt like from the beginning. It felt like, as you said, Sam, those COVID stimulus checks. I would personally love to see that money used to pay down national debt. As William, you mentioned, rebuild the military, I think would be great. I think we sometimes forget that our military kind of took a big hit during the Biden administration with the double whammy of COVID vaccine mandates, which forced a lot of good soldiers out, and also a lot of the trans stuff, which also forced a lot of good potential soldiers from wanting to join. I do think that's a big priority.
And
we
the
need to
debt
focus
is
on
causing major problems for the military
and the debt,
as
you're
well.
Exactly
for
right.
the first time ever, we're now spending more money servicing the debt than we are on our military, and that's a way that countries go kaput. That is not a good sign.
Absolutely. So, but on the other hand, I see what Mr. Hassett's saying here. It seems to be a different kind of payment than that COVID payment was. We'll have to see here for sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the chat there, folks. I understand we might not have time to get to all of them right now, but here's what I'll say about it, Sam. I would not begrudge anyone who feels a little bit cautious about this. I feel a little bit cautious about it myself, but hearing that clip there makes me a little more confident that maybe it is what he says it is there. Maybe, So I don't know.
At least he takes some of the teeth out of the argument that this is going to cause major problems for the economy. He's saying, no, that's silly.
Exactly right, for sure. So there's a lot of things to talk about with this. Again, folks, much of it is we have to wait and see what's going to happen. Of course, we have this Ukraine deal that's a potential. We have the tariffs that are a potential. And now we have this stuff as well. DOGE continues to do its paring back of what seems to be kind of reckless government spending. So we'll just have to see how this plays out here for sure. But really interesting stuff for sure as we see this play out. Hey, what to expect this week real quickly, folks, in the economy. So today we actually just got the ISM manufacturing number for February. I'm going to leave that to see if Shana wants to mention that tomorrow. I don't know if she will or not. There's not many numbers coming out tomorrow. Wednesday we get the ISM services number. Thursday we get the PCE index for January. We also get the jobless claims numbers for the week ending March 1st. And then Friday is kind of the big day. We get non-farm payrolls. We also get Powell will speak right around midday Friday. Fed Chair Jerome Powell will speak, and we'll get consumer credit on Friday as well. So that all will come out for this week here. Quickly, Sam, before we have to sign off today, we did get a core inflation number that came out on Friday. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, let's get you that update here. Core inflation hit 2.6% in January, largely keeping with expectations there. By the way, this is the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation measure. It increased 0.3% to an annualized 2.6% rate, excluding food and energy. I'm sorry, that was not core. That was at 2.5%. That was regular. The regular inflation rate, core inflation rather, was 0.26%, and that, of course, is excluding food and energy. But again, keeping with expectations of what we were predicting to see.
Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. Hey, folks, we're coming to the end end of the program here, so I did want to encourage you one more time. Our verse of the day today was that verse I read earlier, the theme verse for our campaign with Crossroads Kids Club, Out of Darkness. Listen to the words from Colossians 1:13 and 14. Once again, he has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. Of course, that is the blood of Jesus Christ, in whom we trust alone for our salvation. I would urge you today, folks, to trust in the Lord Jesus Christ for salvation. He is the only way to heaven. And I'm so grateful to be part of a ministry that ultimately, that's what we're here to do. We're here to encourage people in the gospel. And we do that through biblically responsible investing. So consider, if you want to fund the light with your investor dollars, consider giving to the Crossroads campaign today at restartschools.com. It's great to be here with you all today. God bless. Remember, it's all his. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with the money he's given to us. God bless you.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.